Alright, hello everyone, I am Wilson Lim. I came top 32 in Oceanics 2022 in New Zealand. I played Danger Tearlaments, and yeah, I went undefeated day 1, and then immediately in top 32 I lost my first round, so yeah, unfortunate, but that's how it is. Before I get into the deck list, I will actually do the unboxing for the the Crystal BLS. I have not unboxed it yet, but yeah. It's wrapped around this. I've actually seen someone else open theirs already, so I know what's the contents. So this is the base, I believe, and then card, and then more foil. I believe this is the Crystal BLS itself. Let me. There we go. So yeah, the packaging, and yeah. Ooh. So yeah, this is the Crystal BLS. Yep. And then I believe this is the base. Let me just open it up real quick. And yeah, the base apparently has lights in it. There's like a power switch over here, and you can even plug in all of the they didn't provide any plugs. And yeah, battery's not provided. But oh god, will it go back in? Will it actually go back in? There we go. Yeah, so it says over here Konami Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship 2022, and I believe this is where you actually slot it in, and this will be what it will look like. Yeah. So with that out of the way, let me move on to the deck list itself. So I'll put this here. Alright, so to start off, I'll start with the basics. So 3 Rhino Hearts, 3 Sharons, 3 Happiness, and then 3 Merlin. So this is the standard ratio, everyone runs this ratios. Sometimes I side out 1 Rhino Heart if I need the space, but otherwise I keep them all there. You shouldn't play less, especially like Merly for example, mainly because when you mill you want consistency, you want to see them milled. And yeah, nothing much else to say. This is very standard, everyone runs these ratios. So let's move these aside. And then we have 3 Nassies, the Dangers. Yeah, two gold rares, optimal. 2 Mothmans, 1 Tsushinoko, 1 Jackalope. These are pretty standard as well. I've seen others run heavier Dangers, but I do have 1 more Bigfoot. So not many people run Bigfoot. The idea is that these are all very standard. This is the bare minimum Danger Engine. Nessie is the best because it's also an Aqua. The most iffy one, I guess, between out of the main ones, I guess, will be Tsuchinoko, because it doesn't really do much. It's just an extender, just a body. Mothman is a level 4, so it's really good. But if you mill them, if you hit if the opponent, snipes the Mothman, then it feels bad. Bigfoot, the reason I run this, the idea is that this isn't out to floodgates. So if your opponent flips Rivalry on you and you have a Bigfoot in hand, you can actually keep activating Bigfoot over and over again until you actually discard it. And then Bigfoot can actually just pop the Rivalry. But yeah, outside of that as well, you can just Super Poly, which did came up in the main event. Super Poly, get rid of 2 of their monsters, discard Bigfoot, Bigfoot pops another card, which is kind of crazy.
Nice.
Yep.
Also pretty chunky.
Yeah, pretty chunky, yeah. 3k beat stick. So that is the Dangers. And then I believe this next up are the one-off extenders. So Snow is self-explanatory, everyone runs it. It's overpowered, it overperformed. Gizmek is my extender of choice. Excuse me. I know that of others who run what was that? Zephyros, because of the dangers you can bounce the danger back and special summon Zephyros, and also the other one which is what was Destrudo? Yeah, the dragon that special summons itself as well. These are all good names for Curious as well. That's what the dangers are for. The thing about Gizmek that I preferred over the others is that for one thing, you can actually make Zerberus strong. That's pretty obvious. But also, Gizmek is the only extender out of the 3 dimension that actually plays well when you get hit by, let's say, Silent Graveyard, Abyss Dweller, or even what do you call that card again? Shifter. So Gizmek can be activated from hand, and that's the key thing. Destrudo can as well, but Destrudo doesn't actually power up Zero Burst. So yeah, that's the reason why I play Gizmek over the others. Yeah, Gizmek quick effect as well. It saved me one game. And then next up is the Spice Spell Canceller. I apparently thought that I was one of the only ones running it, and then someone told me that Hani also runs it, and then he announced it somewhere, and then a lot of people are also running this. Not that many, but more than I expected anyway. So Spell Canceller, the idea is that I noticed that a lot of people are running going second cards, as in they stop running hand traps and they go board breakers. Even the Power Spell Sprite that actually does that. So Spell Canceller just says no to going second cards. A lot of the time in a mirror match, I Spell Canceller and they just can't play. There was a game where my opponent had Super Poly, Dark Ruler, and Mystic Mine in hand, and I had Spell Canceller, so he just scooped. Yeah. And then moving on to the spells, this one is the going second spells. Dark Ruler, Super Poly. Yeah, if my opponent Spell Cancellers me, I'll be sad if I had this, but not many people played Spell Canceller, so I was fine. So this is pretty standard. I think this is good. Good ratio for going second. These are consistency cards. Everyone must play Desires. It's free draw 2. So it's a +1 for free. It also powers up Zero Burst, so yeah. And also for more consistency, field spell, 4 field spells. Yeah, nothing much to explain here. These are all pretty standard. One of power cards. Cold Buy, broken card. It's broken only because it's at 1. If it's at 3, people will play around it, so it's not that bad. If it's at 0, then it doesn't exist, so yeah. Instant Fusion is instant Kit Kalos, which is really very powerful. Or if you're going against Striker, this is instant Mud Dragon, which also stops Sky Striker basically. Yeah, nothing much to explain other than the fact that I don't run Foolish Burial because I find that Foolish Burial is good, but you require more cards, more setup. It's not good if you open just Foolish Burial and that's your only play, because you mill the Tearlaments and it's not going to do anything. And it's a huge nag if you have the fusion using your hand as well. So yeah, Foolish Burial isn't nearly as good as these other two. Next up is the are the traps. 2 select. This is pretty standard. Main reason why I run 2 select instead of running 1 select 1 Meta Noise, which was my original builds, is that when you mill select, which is quite often, especially with Dangerous, where you can actually pitch and send the select, it adds the Tearlament from deck, so not from the graveyard, which Meta Noise requires prior setup. One thing I didn't like about Meta Noise in my testing as well is that when you try to flip Meta Noise, they can Ash to stop your interruption, whereas select is a lot harder to stop. And then 3 Dynamiscus. So this is my out to Mystic Mine, other than Spell Canceller as well. But this is also out to Floodgates, and you can actually fusion during using Dynamiscus. So this card is actually really very broken. This is far superior to all other Mystic Mine outs for Tearlaments at the very least. Yeah, that's it for the main deck. And moving on to the extra deck. Whoops, this is the side deck card. Yep, so fusion monsters. 2 Kit Kalos. Second one always comes up. You can drop down to 1 if you play a super combo heavy variant of the deck, but I play this mid range, so 1 Kaleido Heart. I don't think I ever needed more than 1. If my opponent banishes it, I'll just play without it. You don't need it in the deck. 1 Drago Stipula. These ratios are really very standard. Excuse me. So one thing I noticed about Tearlament players during the event is that they don't know that, or at the very least, they don't play it in such a way that you can actually recycle these two. So one of Tearlament's strength is that you can recycle your cards quite a lot. A Tearlament plus Mud Dragon can go into Drago Stipula, and a Tearlament plus Drago Stipula can go into Mud Dragon, so you can just recycle these two. A lot of times I see them actually summon both these guys out to go into the Curious, and I think that's not a good idea, because once these two are out of the picture, then you're only stuck with attempting to recycle with these. And if somehow your opponent banishes one of these, then you can't recycle anymore. Your Tearlaments start to become useless. So yeah, I think having 2 mini engines for recycling is good for the deck. Yeah, so that's fusions, and yeah, this guy is broken with Super Poly, and you also use him to go into Curious. Draws 1 when it goes to the graveyard. Pretty good. And then XCs, I believe I run 3. Let me see. Back to Tom Knight. This Dweller. Oh, I run 4. Sorry. Yeah, so this is one of the best ways to get, one of the easiest ways to go into Spell Canceller. So you send Spell Canceller using Curious, and then you summon this guy with 2 level force, and then you bring Spell Canceller back with him. You just lose your main phase 1 by doing that, and it's not that bad. Actually, there's one game where I won because I used this guy to bring back Kaleido Heart. And then Kaleido Heart just shuffles another card back in, and then yeah, the game was over there. Because I started outgrinding him from that point on. Reader, I see people starting to drop him, but I think he's really powerful, especially in a Nib format. People don't respect Nib enough. But as long as you hold the Sharon effect, you go into Reader. If you go over 5 summons, you can still Reader chain into the Nib, and yeah, you still get a fusion out of it, and the Nib doesn't really do much. Abyss Dweller for the mirror match. Exciton Knight. Not many people run this. Not sure why, but this card is really very good. If you're playing the Sprite boards, you Dark Ruler, and sometimes you can't really break their board too much. You just go into 2 level 4s, go to the Exciton, and just wipe the whole board clean. Otherwise, you can even Exciton Knight with your own Tearlaments on the field, and you can start triggering their effects. So I found this card really very good. It performed really very well. The only time I side this out is if I'm going game 2, I'm going second against Tearlament, and I side this out, and yeah, I'll go to the side deck later. But otherwise, pretty happy with the XEs lineup. And next up, the Links. So IT Masquerina, Dark, powerful card. Curious, this card is broken as hell. Yeah, and the 2 Link Force. So IP Masquerina is really very good, especially if you pair her up with these other 2. There was a game where my opponent tried to Mystic Mine me, and I used IP Masquerina, turn my Kaleido Heart and another fusion monster, another Dark, and turned into Curious. So I basically was sitting on 1 monster, and a monster that if they remove from the field, I get to recover. So he basically had to sit on that Mystic Mine for too long, and then I drew into my Dynamiscus and I won from there. But yeah, Dark is broken against Sprite or against Mirror Match especially. But Dark is also really very good if you get shifted. There was a game where my opponent shifted me. He was going first. He didn't have much. He shifted, so he knew that he was going to be safe, or at least he thought he was going to be safe. I had Dangers. I had also, what do you call that? Dismech. So I just had 3 bodies on board, went into Dark with 2 of them, took his shifter using Dark, and then I went to Zero Boros and I punched for game because that was Banish using, what do you call that as well? I had Desires as well. So somehow managed to win to game with Zero Boros just like that. But yeah, that's extra deck. And then moving on to sides. So I played 2 Zero modes. This is mainly for the Sprite matchup. This did come up with Danger Tier as well, but yes, basically just remove 3 for free. Pretty good. You don't really use your normal summons that much. So when you hard draw Spell Canceller as well in the main deck, I actually won my game by tribute summoning over the Bigfoot that I summoned. Yeah, and then 1 Elf. So Elf was originally in my main deck, my main extra deck. It is good for recovery. It especially works well with Dynamiscus because Dynamiscus is level 2. And you can special summon Murdy on your opponent's turn and start milling. Basically, it's a halfness. Stop targeting as well. It's really good. The problem is, out of all the extra deck cards, I had to find a way to fit this guy back in, Digars, to go to Spell Canceller. So Spell Canceller was a last minute addition, and I'm glad I did that. And every other card in the extra deck was too useful, too important. So I had no choice but to take out the Elf. So I put Elf into the side so that I can fit this guy in. Yeah, the other option was to take this guy out, but I find that playing through Floodgates and everything, breaking boards with him is just too good. And yeah, Elf is only good for the recovery from my experience. There's some interesting combos between with Elf and IP as well, but I'll get to that later. And these are monsters, 3 Imprims, mainly sided against Tearlaments and Sprite. Tearlaments because you don't want to get Abyss Dweller, Sprite, because doing this on their Dragonix Sprite just ends their turn most of the time. And then 2 evenly matched. These are for Tearlaments and back row decks. Red Reboot also for Tearlaments and back row decks. So a lot of people think Tearlaments are like basically a monster deck. I think Tearlaments is a back row deck. That's where the largest threats typically lie, in the back row. You can handle the monsters quite well, but the back row is the one that you need to watch out for. So I usually side Red Reboot for that. Yeah, 3 pointer. I do not want to get even lead. So these were also last minute additions, but after lots of playtesting where I got even lead left and right non-stop, I was like, you know what, I need to stop it. So a pointer. And then 3 skill drain. This is mainly against any of Sprite is one deck that it's good against, and also any of the decks that this deck automatically loses to. Example would be decks that main Shifter. That would be Exo Sisters and Fluendaries. You flip this on them and they lose. So yeah, they shifted you, just skill drain them. So okay, now you'll still win the exchange either way. So this is the side deck. Anything that I would want to change, I'm not exactly sure. I felt like the deck performed quite well. When I lost in top 32, it was due to time and then sudden death. He won a die roll and sudden death, and that's basically what costed me the game. But I believe I'm confident I could have won game 2 there. But I won game 1. But yeah. Maybe if I were to change something, I would like to add either the Agave Dragon Engine or maybe even Cowboy, just to burn, just to play into time. But if that's the case, I'll probably replace one card inside deck, maybe 3rd skill drain, for example. Then I'll put Cowboy in. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty happy with the deck. It performed quite well for me. Went undefeated day 1. So yeah, that is the deck. Going through like small side combos. One thing you can really do that's really very nice in the deck, other than dangers building up into Zeroboros. Oh wait, where's my side deck? Sorry, my extra deck. There we go. Yeah, so if during games 2 and 3, I sometimes will end on something like this, where I have Elf and IP, and then let's say I have Merlin Graveyard, or else I wouldn't be able to go to Elf going first. Where is my Merlin? Oh, it's down there. Yeah, so Merlin Graveyard, and Elf and IP. So typically, you may also have other extenders, but let's just say these are the only cards and maybe some back row. When your opponent starts playing, you can actually chain 1 Elf target Merlin, and then chain 2 IP. So IP and Elf. Depending on the deck that you're going up against as well. But yeah, against Sprite, you go into Bomber, and then chain link 1 will resolve. You bring back Merlin. Then Bomber will trigger. Chaining 1, this is mandatory. Then chaining 2 Merlin, you mill 3. Assuming you hit something, you get more fusions, but if you don't hit anything, Bomber will actually pop Merlin, and then Merlin gets to trigger in the graveyard. So this is one nifty combo. Otherwise, if you're going against a back row deck, at the end of their main phase 2, or at the end of their main phase, you go into Zeroboros instead. And then you do the same thing. You lose the Merlin, you lose the Zeroboros, but he loses his entire field, and it vanishes, then Zeroboros will come back. So yeah, this is one of the nifty combos that you can do with Elf IP. So that's why I kept Elf in the side deck, even though I took it out. But there's a lot of other variants in the deck as well. Like you can use Gizmac, you can use Snow, and you can IP Snow, IP Gizmac, for example. Yeah, that's something I like to add as well. You actually try to be conservative, and you try to end on 4 summons or 5 summons, 6 at the very most, unless you're very sure that you're playing against someone who's going for a board breaker type. Typically, that would be mirror matches. But yeah, when you play the deck, you try to read if it's a board breaker deck or a hand trap deck. Hand trap deck, you end on something like, let's say, Kid Chaos Redoer, or maybe even Merlin Redoer. When you open a Nibs, Merlin will trigger the fusion. You can train Redoer, then Redoer detach Sharon, and you get 2 fusions out of it. So that actually happened once in the main event. My opponent nipped me, and then he lost because of it, because my board became a lot bigger. There was also a game where I had a lot of dangers in hand, but I wasn't sure if he was playing board breakers or hand traps, so I just ended on 4 summons. My opponent asked me, why I didn't overextend. I told him I just wasn't sure if he's playing hand traps, and then at the end of the game he revealed that he had Nibiru sitting in his hand the whole time. So yeah, thankfully I didn't play into that. I think pure tier is superior against the meta. The only reason I play Dangerous is because you need some way to play the game if you get hit by cards that stops your main tier combos. Abyss Dweller, for example, Shifter. So that's why I play Dangerous and Gizmek. Yeah, shouting out everyone here. Hornsby, GT. This is the locals that I play in most of the time. Yeah, so I did a lot of practice here. I practiced in DB, Dueling Book, Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega. I would also like to give a special shout out to Joshua Kim. He went with me to Anza Oceanics. I likely wouldn't have gone if no one else was going with me. And he also discussed with him regarding the last minute edition, which is the Digaris and Spell Canceller. And after discussion, we both agreed that yeah, this is a spicy type worth bringing in. Yeah, because I originally already had this in my deck and I took it out again, and then yeah, put it back in. And also Kevin Pham for lending me this copy of Exoton Knight. Yeah, I had a copy, I just couldn't find it, so last minute I had to borrow it from him, and this came up in today. Yeah, not today, sorry, in the event itself. So yeah, special thanks also to Hugo, who's currently cameraman. But yeah, we also play tested quite a lot, practiced quite a lot. So yeah, that is the deck profile. If you want to see more, please let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, so on and so forth. Also shout out my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/Ixiehn, IXSIEHN. You should be able to see it in the description down below as well. So yeah, thanks.